The 70,000 inhabitants that make up Waukesha, Wisconsin, all have the same pressing problem. Their main source of drinking water, a deep water aquifer, is contaminated with naturally occurring radium.
Oh no, I don't drink the water. As soon as we got the information about, well, the radium levels weren't appropriate, we immediately set up getting drinking water delivered.
And as Waukesha draws water from deeper and deeper underground, the problem gets worse.
There is a concern over radium. We are in violation of the radium standards. We are under a court order to comply with the standards by June of 2018, and we are working our way to get to a point where we are in compliance with those standards.
With its downtown located less than 20 miles as the crow flies from Lake Michigan, Waukesha is naturally looking at a water diversion from the Great Lakes as a solution. So the city hired consultants to help develop a study of the water problem.
At the same time that Waukesha was going about its studies, the Regional Planning Commission in southeastern Wisconsin embarked on a water supply study for the entire region. And the ultimate recommendation for the city of Waukesha was to apply for a diversion from the Great Lakes to supply water for the city of Waukesha.
Even though Waukesha is closer to Lake Michigan than most Americans' daily commute, it nevertheless sits outside the borderline of what's known as the Great Lakes Basin. Now, why should this matter? Because of a contract between the 8 Great Lakes states, known as the Great Lakes Compact.
When the 8 Great Lakes states entered into this compact, they made a commitment to each other, a legally enforceable commitment to each other, to apply a set of uniform standards to protect the Great Lakes from water withdrawals, to prohibit most diversions, and to sustainably manage Great Lakes water resources for the future. The United States Congress approved the compact, and President Bush signed it as one of his last acts in office, so it has the full force and effect of federal law.
But with every rule, there are exceptions. In the Great Lakes Compact, the framers included 2 regarding water diversion.
There were 2 straddling clauses in the compact. One was for straddling cities, where a city that has one part of their city in the basin and one part out is allowed to use Great Lakes water for their whole city.
For a straddling city or straddling community's request for water diversion, only the local governor needs to approve. But the city of Waukesha falls under the second exemption clause, the straddling county.
So what's really newsworthy about Waukesha is that it is the first community ever to apply for a water diversion under the straddling county exception clause in the compact. So it is really going to be this trailblazer and this precedent-setting case.
Under the second exemption, any community within a county that straddles the Great Lakes Basin borderline can request a diversion. But the compact makes sure that approval would be extremely difficult.
The approval bar for the straddling county exception is much higher in that water diversion application needs the approval not just of the local governor, but of all 8 governors in the Great Lakes Basin. So all it takes is one governor in the Great Lakes Basin to veto, if you will, a straddling county water diversion application under the compact.
For diversion approval, the straddling county exception must meet many requirements. For one, the applicant must prove need of the diversion.
Waukesha or any proposed water diversion needs to show that they need the water and that their needs can't be met by either conserving existing supplies or finding another source of water. To put it bluntly, seeking a Great Lakes water diversion needs to be your last and only option left on the table before it's allowed to be considered.
The applicant must also have a plan to treat and return the water to the Great Lakes Basin after use. The Waukesha proposal includes a plan for returning the water, but it is not without its technical challenges, as critics point out.
We treat that water, and the treated water has to be treated to a higher level than a lot of the other dischargers in this area, because we're discharging to a river and then ultimately leading back to Lake Michigan, so that there is no net impact or no net loss on the Great Lakes.
But as one can imagine, this part of the application is fraught with political and environmental concerns. Not everyone is convinced by Waukesha's plan to return the water, or are even certain of what the current plan is.
They've actually gone through a series of changes, major changes to their first application. In fact, all of the major components of that application now have changed. Where they're going to get their water from, how they're going to transport it out to Waukesha, and then where they're going to bring it back and under what condition they're going to bring it back.
One other hurdle for Waukesha to pass is ultimately the amount of water requested from the diversion. By some accounts, this is a key sticking point.
I'm not a proponent or an opponent of the diversion. I just want the application materials to justify the need for a diversion if one's going to be granted.
Jim Nicholas, retired director of the U.S. Geological Survey's Michigan Water Science Center, was brought in by the National Wildlife Federation to examine the Waukesha application. He then authored a report of his findings.
The application materials do not justify the amount of water that they're asking for, the 10.9 million gallons per day. And I would like to see that justification presented.
There's been a lot of people concerned about this Waukesha application could promote sprawl and give them water that could enable them to promote sprawl in the region.
But if you look at it, it's less than 0.5% per year of growth to build out, which is estimated in 2050. So that's a reasonable amount of growth in this area, and we have to accommodate for it.
There's a number of individuals and people that have been involved in this over the years have raised the issue of whether or not they're trying to get more water in order to service an area that doesn't currently need any water. They have adequate water supplies. And under the compact, if a community has adequate potable water supplies, then they aren't entitled to a diversion.
While there's plenty of red meat within the Waukesha proposal to chew on, these issues seem to be secondary to the real heart of what's actually a very old debate: opposing views on how best to utilize the Great Lakes and how best to protect them.
This region has an economic advantage because we have access to Great Lakes water. And if you have an opportunity to expand that economic advantage one county out, which every one of the 8 states around the Great Lakes has that advantage. If you have that advantage, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? Why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't you allow a growing city like Waukesha to have access to Great Lakes water that will have no environmental impact on the Great Lakes and will just be a great opportunity for the region?
One of the reasons that this is going to be such a big thing has almost nothing to do with Waukesha. You could make a very cogent argument that the amount of water that Waukesha is going to take out of Lake Michigan in return has no impact on the Great Lakes water levels. It is about the integrity of the overall compact, that we have a sustainable water management system for the state, for the Great Lakes Basin.
As the city of Waukesha continues to prepare its final draft of its water diversion proposal, many are certain that whatever is decided with this case, the decision will be tested in court.
Waukesha, though, is not the only community. There are about a dozen or so communities even 10 years ago that were considering Great Lakes water to meet their public water supply needs. And so when we were negotiating and drafting the Great Lakes Compact, we were very much aware of the looming need and controversy for these suburban communities to use Great Lakes water. And I think we did a good job balancing the competing concerns of the need for public water supply with the need to protect the Great Lakes.